Story 1. That Noise. My father told us this story when we were small. I'm not sure if it's true, but he says it is. We had an old farmhouse. In fact, it was the oldest one on the road. In 1974, my mother was in the hospital after giving birth to my sister. My dad had sent me to stay with relatives. He had closed off most of the house with blankets in the doorways and was just heating one room. He was sitting in there reading the newspaper when he heard a noise. He listened to make sure it was just a tree limb or maybe a mouse in the wall. Something like that. But this noise was different, and it had a pattern. Tickety-tick, tickety-tick, tickety-tick. He turned the light on upstairs and went to investigate. The noise stopped. He dismissed it and returned to his paper, and had no sooner sat down when he heard the noise again. Tickety-tick, tickety-tick, tickety-tick. He waited, and it didn't stop. So he went to look again. As soon as he turned the light on, it stopped. Confused, he once again went back to his paper, and sure enough, it started up again. This time he snuck upstairs in the dark. He could clearly hear the tickety-tick, tickety-tick. He couldn't see anyone, though. "Who's there?" he said. And there was a flash of red light. The noise stopped. 10 years later, my father woke up in the middle of the night to see a man dressed in clothes from the 1800s. With one leg up on the end of the bed. The man was just staring at him while cleaning his pipe. The only sound my dad could hear was the noise he made while scraping out his pipe. Clickety-click, clickety-click, clickety-click. The funny thing was, my dad thought the person was real. He yelled at him, "Who are you?" And there was a flash of red, and the figure disappeared. My dad yelling woke up my mom, and he told her what he saw. She told him that he must be dreaming and to just go back to sleep. To this day, he swears he wasn't asleep and that he saw this man. He didn't even remember his experience a few years before until a couple days later. He's sure the man cleaning his pipe was the exact sound he heard all those years before. No one else has ever seen anything to substantiate my dad's story, and we no longer live in this house. Story 2. Church Ghost. About 2 years ago, myself and another guy on duty at the rescue squad we worked for were at the movies. We get to see the movies for free at the local theater, since it never fails that we get called out before seeing the whole movie. Anyway, while seeing the movie 7, we get toned out. It's a call to the harbor for a woman choking. We were told to stage before entering the scene, so we staged the ambulance at the end of the street that the emergency was on. It was raining that night and very muddy out. It seemed that a lady was in her kitchen, was by her sink, and saw out her kitchen window a woman in her backyard holding her throat as if she was choking. She was said to have long blonde hair and was wearing a white gown. So the dispatchers told the lady to stay inside since it was nighttime and we really wasn't sure what was going on, and to wait for the police to arrive. The police arrived, and after about 10 minutes, we were put back into service because they couldn't find anything. Thinking this was rather strange, we went back to the squad, and I called dispatch for times and to ask them what all this was about. They proceeded to tell me that police arrived and went into the backyard. They searched the small wooded backyard and didn't find anything. They also stated there was no footprints in the backyard. With the rain and the soggy, muddy ground, there should have been some prints in the backyard. But they found none, and they didn't find a young lady in white. I thought this was rather weird, so a couple days later, I was taking some time to talk to some of the other squad members, and I told them about my call the previous night. One of the members proceeded to tell me of a murder that had occurred back during the Civil War, or sometime around then, and of the young woman with long blonde hair and a white gown that had been spotted numerous times over the years in our small town. Well, I was a little freaked out hearing about this. I couldn't believe that this was happening right in our own backyards. I may not have seen anything, but to go on a ghost call, as my friends call it, was very strange to say the least. Story 3. 2 past midnight. My husband and I bought our first house, and I don't really know when I first noticed this, but if I stood in our living room and looked through the east side window, I could see a pair of glowing red lights shining eerily in the middle of our neighbor's yard at night. It would only be when they weren't home, and their backyard was pitch black. I remember getting the most uncomfortable feeling when I saw it, because there was no reason for them to be there. I thought at first that perhaps it was somehow a reflection or refraction of light from our house. But no, after turning off all the lights, the stereo, shutting the front window drapes, eliminating all possible light sources, the pair of red lights remained. They were about 6 feet off the ground, and when they appeared, they always appeared in the exact same spot. They glowed a very bright red, yet they did not illuminate anything in the darkness around them. They were spaced too far apart to be human eyes, but they were not far enough apart to be cartel lights. Besides, they were in the middle of our neighbor's backyard, far from any street. They would stay there for several hours before just disappearing. I got the impression of evil from this, as though it might be a specter of some kind, so I never ventured outside to get close. They were puzzling, because they didn't appear all the time, so I couldn't make out a pattern of when they would appear. The only common factor was my neighbors were not home on those nights. I got used to seeing them after a while, so I would avoid looking out the window for the rest of the evening. Or we'd close those curtains. Somehow, which is very odd, I never told my husband about seeing them until well after we moved. I'm glad I didn't, because he said he would have gone outside for a closer look. We have since moved, and I wonder if the new owners of the house ever see those lights. I'd like to ask them, but I don't suppose I will. At our new house, we have a strange occurrence as well. 2 past midnight. I've been spending a lot of time on our new computer, late at night, reading stories. I'll put my computer on suspend instead of completely shutting it down. I decided to read some magazines. So I've been sitting there, reading, with the cat on the back of the chair, and my husband in bed asleep, for a good 45 minutes, when I heard the computer turn itself back on. Okay, so maybe the wire in the mouse had somehow had tension on it, causing it to move. I looked at the clock to see, and it was exactly 12:02 a.m. The next evening, my husband asked me to make him Jell-O with fruit in it. I set the timer on my microwave for 90 minutes to remind me to put the fruit in. We remained in the kitchen, my husband and I, talking about the day's events, when I had this compelling feeling to look at the microwave. I whipped my head around to look at the microwave, and the time remaining on the timer said 12:02. That night, I had drifted off to sleep when my husband woke me up suddenly. He told me he heard a sound, like our cat had thrown up, behind the stereo in our bedroom. I got up and looked, and there was nothing there. He apologized for waking me. I told him it was okay, and that I was used to it by now. I sensed, even as I asked him the question, "Hey, by the way, what time is it?" Yeah, you guessed it. It was 12:02 a.m. Such a strange coincidence, huh? Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Bye.